Go on, go back on me. Back on me. Back on me.
Yeah.
Back on me. Sorry about that. We got, believe it or not, we've actually got a brand new router which was installed yesterday. And believe it or not, that's twice it's gone down today. So I think BT will be getting a phone call from me tomorrow, to say the least. So that's the beautiful thing about modern technology. So in your absence, which we apologise for, we're now working from the occipital bone, which we're going to be going straight in. So, again, keeping all the lines nice and clean, let's get straight into the cut. You have to think about your well-being when you're cutting hair, so sitting down so you're at eye level is really important. Now, because we're going to go straight into this, I just want to subdivide this hair off into 3 pieces, which is really important, and we're going to be quite short with this on a square bob. So the idea is we're using the maximum tension on the comb, which is really important, rather than minimum tension, and then literally it's just a question of holding it steady with the arm. And you have to think about the mechanics of this, because again, on the mechanics, when I say that is literally the part of your arm that you're actually sort of holding up. So if you sort of look at my arm now, Dad, you can just see my arm. This is the mechanics, it moves. So most people have a weak side, some people have a strong side. The idea is that on your weak side you can actually pull your arm up to hold it so it's perfect, rather than making it sort of hang down. Now, looking at these angles I've just created here with the section, that actually denotes where we're going with this comb. So we're actually going to comb it down in that angle to make sure that the bob comes out as a perfect line. So you can see now I'm actually replicating what's on that section just as I come through. Now, if I was to cut this in a straight line as such, where everything is literally cut with the line going like that, it would then flare up at the edges, which would then cause obviously the wrong shape, and it would look more like a page boy. So by actually combing it down in the same angle, that creates the same shape. So you can see it now just coming through, it's creating that really nice bob shape. I spent a year doing bobs when I originally worked at Remy's in Leicester many years ago, back in 1987. So of course I was sort of, let's say, I won't say fed up with them, but I knew them inside out before we then moved on to the next part of the cutting programme, which was then brushback. Some of you that are more mature fans tonight that are watching brushbacks when the hair's straight in the back and it's shorter on the sides, which then allows you to then brush it back. Very popular look in the 80s. Okay, so that now creates that shape in the back, which you can see. I always like to see a strong shape. Again, the product's helping me to do that. So we're now moving up to the upper occipital bone, which again, we're using the map to go to the mastoid process. I'm just going to come around the other side so I don't knock my dad over. That's it. It's almost like carousel tonight. Hopefully we've got some people watching from abroad tonight, which is always nice when we've got the international viewers. Let's see Nick. Nice to see Nick. Looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. Coming for a haircut. Who else is on tonight? Bernie. Nice to see Bernie. Lucy. Nice to see Lucy's on there from the Jam. And also last week's model, Big Mate. Nice to see you on there watching. Okay, let's just pull down the next section. So again, we're coming back in on Thursday night to do another cut, which will be really good. So we'll be able to showcase again another major restyle. So again, you can see how sharp these scissors are. They are really like just going straight through the hair. Most hairdressers have their scissors sharpened every 12 months. I have mine sharpened every 12 weeks, which you can see it's just cutting through the hair like knife through butter tonight. So again, it's important to keep the tension on. You have to think about your mechanics, what you're doing with the comb. The beautiful thing about cutting through a comb is the comb actually is like a ruler. A lot of people tend to think that it's quite difficult to cut through a comb. It's actually more complicated to cut through fingers, because as you're cutting through fingers, what's happening is you will cause a graduation, which means that the outer part of the hair, okay, this part here, looks very short and the underneath is long, which then creates a flick. This, when you're doing this technique, causes a really nice straight line, which then I can dictate on the hair, which at the moment we've got a degree of stress on the hair. Well, it's when you're putting the hair through the comb. we can dictate with that literally how much of an angle I want to create. So I can go that way, so really angle it in, or that way, whichever way I want to go. So it's just a nice technique to be able to create that geometrical graduated bob shape. Now you can see just through in here we've got a really nice shape coming. So let's move on to the next part. We're now coming up to the apex, which is the top bone on the top of the skull. Again, for those of you that don't use this technique, let's go back on me. For those of you that don't use that technique in terms of thinking about the bones that are on the skull, try them. So you need to write them down, rewind the film back, and then you can sort of use that, and you'll find that that guide is going to be really good for you. Every time I cut hair every day, same as the people, stylists that know what those guides are, you probably say it in your head automatically. If you turn around to a guest and said, oh, by the way, I'm just cutting your hair from the mastoid process, they'd turn around and think, what is that? Which, yes, it is a bit strange, but in our kind of talk, hairdressing talk, it's quite simple. So let's go with the back now, just to keep everything nice and clean. The idea is that when you're doing this haircut, you need to be thinking of when you're building a house, okay? This is like the blue bricks, which you're putting in as a foundation. The smarter you can get that line, the easier it is to actually check it off at the end. So if the line's wonky, you're going to be working on it a lot more when it's dry, which we'll visit it later when we come back after you've put your children to bed, had some dinner, watched a bit of Coronation Street, or whatever you're doing, when I'd call it. This cut should take probably another 15 minutes, I would say. Then we'll have a slight intermission, if we don't have an intermission before, from BT. And then we'll come back again to do the finish. Hopefully Tracy's watching tonight from Primal, which I know she was keen to get on and watch. Something a little bit different for you. The cut on Thursday night, folks, will be quite dramatic as well, so it's just quite nice to do something like this, because then you can sort of showcase really how to cut the straight line. I think cutting a straight line is probably one of the hardest ones to do. You can see now that shape just coming in there, got a really nice clean edge on there, which is what I love to see. So at least you can see that my eyesight's good tonight. It's really important. Okay, so now I'm going to move on with the next part. So looking at the sides. This part now will work from the apex on the top, passing through the parietal ridge to the recession, as we said earlier on with the bones. So we're now just going to cut through that. Again, keeping the sections nice and clean, because we want to keep this haircut as clean as we can. Again, I always tend to try and keep the hair out of the guest's face, because we don't want Daisy's hair all over her face. Just keep that nice and tidy. Now the reason we do this is because most people at college are used to doing horizontal sections, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But when I went to Tony and Guy, it changed. So this is a technique they use there. Paul Mitchell do it as well, as with Vidal Sassoon. What happens now is you can see the whole haircut on a viewing plane as you're going to cut it. So it all falls in more natural, which gives it a very, very easier, fluid way of cutting the hair. So now I'm just putting in the angle again with the comb. Again, you've got to have a good steady hand for this. If you've got a wonky hand, you won't be doing anything. So it's very important as you get through to the sides. The real big technique is just to tap the hair slightly, which then takes the tension out, because you're going on maximum tension with the comb, and then literally just clean it off just to make sure you've not missed anything. And now you can really start to see that shape sort of appearing through. Okay, just lift the guest's head up slightly. Everything needs to be more natural. Just make sure they've not got the legs crossed, and then of course we'll now just give it a little tap. It's like magic. That's what we used to do when we used to have a magic stick with a magic set. So now you can see we're just coming through as we're doing this, and then we can sort of then just get through and get that line in perfect. Now I may just alter this line in a second, but you can see where I'm going with it tonight. Again, I always think of anybody who cuts hair, I've said before, I admire anybody who can cut hair, because it's one of the most hardest jobs, I think, at trying to please people, especially when they're coming with their ideas. You've got to make it all real. Of course, you only get one chance to get it right. So with colour, you can replace colour, but with a cut, once it's off, it's off. So there's our first side just coming through. Now we can see which you can start to see a massive change between the two sides. Let's just clean a little bit more off there. So I'm being quite picky, as always. Through there. Again, it's nice when you've got nice big scissors. You'll see I'm using tonight. These are 8.5-inch blades. It's quite big scissors. So it just keeps everything clean. I know some people averagely use 6, and some people averagely use 5s. I started off with 4s. It was self-sharpers, because I've got quite big hands. I prefer a larger blade, and you can see when you're doing a cut like this, you can really sort of see why you can do that. Get those lines really, really clean. So now there's side 1. We've got a nice feel with that, and there won't be a lot of graduation on it either. So let's just bring the rest of it down now. So on this we can literally just go straight in and bring it all down. Again, the product keeps the hair in a real nice position to be able to cut. So that's why I emphasise to you that if you've not got any, it's 33 people. If you've got a technique where you don't use cutting lotion, then by all means use it. You'll find a massive difference. Big good evening to Claire Hill also tonight. Nice to see you on there. I'm guessing Joshua's probably with you also. I'll be seeing you Thursday morning, so that'll be nice. It's nice to see you in with us tonight from Burbage. It's good. You can see just as we're coming through now, you can really get that line straight. And again, the comb works well. When I'm teaching, when I go out on the road to teach quite a lot, people always have a bit of apprehension with a comb. They are a little bit fearful. So again, it's just more practice makes perfect. Because so if you were using your fingers, you'd be coming down now and pulling it in, and it's just nice just to be able to sort of see that fluidness of the haircut. As you're coming through, you can just line it up and see where you want to go with it. And again, you can really sort of now see, so it's quite thick hair. You can really hear it as we're cutting through it tonight. So it's just nice just to demonstrate really just how it is. If the hair was curly, you'd use a little less tension on there. Again, with hair that's full of elasticity and it bounces up, you'd use less tension on the comb. So it's good when you can use a comb like that. I talked about last week on Andy's hair when we were cutting it with the wider part of the comb first and the tighter part of the comb after. Again, if you can use your comb like that, it's really quite good, and it just makes things a little bit better. Okay, there's side 1. You can really sort of see that change now. How's that feeling, Daisy?
Better.
Good. No problem there. With your dad on the sofa tonight watching, it's like having mirrors all over the place. Right, so now we're going from, again, the apex, cutting through to the recession. There's not a lot of hair on this side to cut because of the parting, so just keep that nice and clean, keep it off the face. So now what we'll do is we'll just pull this in. Just make sure everything's got to be clean on that line whenever you cut. Some of you, I know, will know this, and some of you will thinking about the teachers that have taught them, but again, I can't emphasise the fact it's got to be such a clean line in order to get a clean shape. Let's just come around this way. Just so I don't run the camera over your foot. That's it, I'll probably tell I'm too cheeky in a minute. So coming in from this side then, thinking about the degree of the angle with the comb. Again, just give it a little tap, just so you get the tension off it. From maximum tension here, maximum tension. Again, you just got to be careful with the ears, so slightly elevate it off the ears, just bring it away. It just makes a big difference. Just keep it nice and clean. Join it up like dot to dot. That's what I always tend to think of it as. And then just take that off. And again, it just keeps it all nice and clean. Like I say, when you freehand cutting like this, you've got to make sure you've got a good steady hand. Just check the balance on both sides. At this point you would always check your balance just to make sure that it's looking good, because then you might get a longer piece on one side. Okay, we're now coming through to this part. Again, just comb it all down off the parting so it keeps it really clean and pristine. If it starts to dry out, then you've got to obviously get some water on there just to keep it nice and damp. Let's just get back in there again. Just really nice to do straight lines tonight for a slight change. Remember when I cut my mum's hair for the first time in the kitchen like this, I literally just combed it all down and cut it, because then I thought that's how it was. and I didn't realise when I went to hairdressing school just how complicated it was like this. But of course, when you cut loads of hair in the comb, it does that, it moves, and of course it makes it a very uneven haircut, which is when you get that wonky line. So yes, it's good of mum to teach me that one and then to go to hairdressing college to change it, which then I realised just what it was like. Now I'm just going to balance it up a little bit. So I've got one side just slightly longer. Just take a little bit more off here. Let's get my younger brother just to come around the other side. Come on round, my little friend, come on round. That's it, like that song I'll be singing in a minute, Round Round by the Spice, the Sugar Babes, that's it. Think for a minute. So again, this is very live what you're watching tonight. If you was to drive by, you see us cutting in here. Nothing's re-edited or pre-edited, it's all literally what it is. So that's the nice thing about doing these. Again, I only originally was going to do 3, but with what we've had for compliments from people, I've decided to just take it that little bit further and sort of push it. So it's nice just to sort of showcase other haircuts, which I'm sure you'll see in weeks to come, before I go away again and think about another project that I'll be then asking for people to apply for. But all our models that we've had here have been fantastic, very trusting as well. It's a big thing to sit in front of a camera knowing that somebody around the world's watching you at their living room or their kitchen, or maybe on a boat somewhere, because we've had people on boats and all sorts of things watching. So it's been really quite nice in that respect. I'm guessing Nick's over in Germany tonight, he normally is over there. So